Have you ever heard the word contentment and thought, how in the world am I supposed to be content when I don't know what's going to happen? Hello, I'm Dr. Deb Waterbury. Welcome to this episode of Cancer Wasn't Part of the Plan. I was diagnosed with breast cancer a few weeks ago, so I'm in the very beginning stages of this entire process and this journey. And as I share with you some of my things that I'm dealing with, and I find that they're all very common. And the theme of this week is contentment. And I'm not going to lie to you, before I had breast cancer, it has been that contentment is one of those things I do not do well with. I am always looking for what is the next thing. My husband gets so annoyed with me. He's always telling me I'm not content because I always think about what should come next or planning and all those things. And right now, though, it's this uncertainty with this diagnosis that being content, this is going to be a stretch for me. And I feel that being content, finding contentment in all of this uncertainty is sometimes feeling next to impossible. Like I don't even know what the next steps are sometimes. And the doctors can tell me that, but I also know, given my first surgery is coming up in a couple of weeks, she's let me know that everything can change depending on what she sees when she's in there. So every plan I can make or anything I think I can do is tentative at best. So if I'm honest, and if we're honest with one another, we realize that certainty just doesn't have any place in a cancer journey. So this goal, this idea that I can be content has to mean so much more than just knowing what my circumstances are or knowing what's going to happen next. And so I want to tell you just a couple of things today that I'm learning as I go through this journey, and I know that you are too, because again, as I said, being content is a lifelong aspiration of mine. I understand the differences between being ambitious and then being discontent. At least I understand those now. I am a very ambitious woman. I've always been ambitious. I've always wanted to do better. I've always wanted to be more. It's just I've been that way. I keep trying to remind my husband that he's known me and been with me since I was 16. He was 17, so we were in high school together. He remembers I was that one that needed to be the president of every club and be on every sports team. I mean, I always felt like I could do more. So I understand the difference between being ambitious or feeling that there's more out there and not being content in where I am. And unfortunately, those lines get blurred a lot of times. And I'm not even sure if I've understood completely how not to have those lines blurred. So this cancer diagnosis really blurred those lines and really made me realize, okay, I felt so much better whenever I saw the doctor the first time and I felt like I had a plan. And then I realized my plan didn't mean much of anything because she told me that, yes, this is our plan if things are the way we think they are, and yet I will know nothing until that moment I'm inside and see. So all my plans really my plans are nothing. It's all uncertainty. So can I be content? Can you be content with a cancer diagnosis or any kind of illness or a situation in your family that you're not in control of, or your job or your home or your children or your husband or your spouse or your wife? When you can't control something, can you still be content? So as I was thinking about this and studying this, looking at scripture, and we're talking about the scriptures this week, and the one that I'm mostly looking at is the one in Philippians 4, which is this first point here, and that is contentment doesn't mean, and it's not the same as liking my circumstances. I'm not happy that I have been diagnosed with breast cancer. That was not my happiest moment getting that phone call, and I know wasn't yours either. So contentment then can't be, if I'm called to be content, then it can't be about liking where I am right now. And so I immediately thought of what Paul said and the way he described contentment in Philippians 4. He said, I have learned to be content in whatever circumstances I find myself. Now, understand and see this immediately. Paul said, I have learned. It wasn't something that was automatic. He wasn't born with contentment. Now, I do think that there are those of us, or those of them, I should say, because I'm not one of them, that was born with a predisposition toward toward contentment. My husband is very content no matter where he is. He's not always aspiring for more. So he has a predisposition, I think, more toward contentment, whereas I am always aspiring for more or toward more. So I have a predisposition that maybe struggles with contentment. However, even he wasn't born content. He was born immediately knowing how to say no as a child. That's discontentment. I don't like where I am. I want that. So my answer to you is no about this thing. So it's not natural. It's not easy. Paul wrote this while he was sitting in prison. I mean, he wasn't obviously content being in prison. He was in the Philippian jail at this moment. So it wasn't about his circumstances. He'd experienced hunger. He'd been beaten. He'd been shipwrecked. He'd been flogged. He'd been lonely. He'd had disappointment after disappointment of people leaving him and things not happening the way that he thought they should. So Paul wasn't saying, I am content. I love that he said, I have learned to be content in whatever circumstances I find myself. This gives me hope, because what this tells me is that contentment isn't a personality trait. It is not something that I was born with. Yes, I have my personality just as you do, and God gave me this personality. But none of our personalities have within them this automatic thing called contentment. Paul says that he had to learn it. But I understand that even as God gave me, or no, I shouldn't say he gave me, that he allowed breast cancer to enter me and enter my life, it has been one of the biggest classrooms I've had so far on learning to be content. And it has been a classroom that I've been in my whole life. And this has been a big classroom here. And I don't believe God allowed cancer to infiltrate my body because he thought, oh, Deb needs to learn some contentment. But I know that he is being faithful to me in these circumstances to make me more like Jesus, to give me more of those attributes that will bring me peace. And believe it or not, brothers and sisters, the search for contentment is where peace lies. And I know that's what I want, as it is what you want. So we are looking, and God gives us these classrooms, or allows these classrooms where we can learn to be content. And this is another one for me. And I pray that you see whatever situation or circumstance you're in right now as a classroom for you to learn contentment. And what I've also understood is that the uncertainty of cancer, or uncertainty of anything, has taught me what I'm actually trusting in. I like calendars. If you know me, and many of you who are listening right now do, and those of you who don't, if you've listened to me for any length of time, you will know that I am a scheduled person. I like calendars. I make lists. I like knowing what's happening. I feel so comfortable whenever I know what's about to happen, or if I have a plan for what's about to happen. I am a planner. I love org charts. I love organization. I love everything because I'm a control freak. I'm the first to admit it. I love to be in control. I love to feel in control. And one of the ways that I feel in control is to have a schedule, to have a plan. But what's happened here now with cancer is that my plans are out the windows. Appointments change, diagnoses change, doctors disagree. I disagree with doctors. There are new symptoms that may appear. I have a doctor, my surgeon right now, telling me I can't tell you anything until we've had the surgery, and even then things can change. So in this what I've learned is that I have trusted in my schedule. Here recently I'm changing vocations. I'm leaving being a pastor and moving into more of an international and a local ministry of unity, and even in between of that, I was finding myself so uncomfortable and so discontent because I didn't have a structured plan in front of me. That tells me that I'm trusting in my schedule. I'm trusting in my control rather than in my Father. And my peace will never, ever be in my org chart or in my calendar. My peace has to be in the Lord. Because, what happens is that we start thinking things like, if I only knew what was going to happen, if I only could see what was coming, if I could only get this planned out, then I would be content. And the truth is, those things change all the time. The only thing that doesn't change is God. The only thing that never fluctuates is God's character. The only thing I can count on with absolute certainty is my Father and His love and His protection and His plans for me. He says in Jeremiah 29:11 that I know the plans I have for you. So His plans don't move. Mine ain't move around all the time. So of course I need to learn to trust in the one place that is worth my trust, that is worth my energy to trust. And so the other thing that I'm learning is that contentment is a one day at a time thing. I have to learn, as we all do, and I touched on this in one of my little videos this week, that we have to learn to be people of today. There's a reason why Jesus said in Matthew 6 that we shouldn't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow has enough worries of its own. And if you notice the very first part of that whole section on worry, Jesus gives you an imperative. He says, don't worry. He's not saying if you feel like it or if things are better, if you can just really work on this. What Jesus said is do not worry. So that's an imperative. He's literally telling you don't do it. And then he ends that teaching on worry by saying it's just a waste of energy. It's a waste of time to worry about tomorrow. And I go back to Lamentations 3:27 or 3:17, where Moses is writing about that God's mercies are new every morning. What he's saying there is that I have mercy today for today. God has given me all that I can do today. And if I start thinking about tomorrow's mercies, I'm borrowing. If I'm saying, oh gosh, I need to worry about this because it's happening in the future, well, then I'm taking mercies that I haven't gotten yet. I'm trying to use mercy that I haven't gotten yet, which means that I'm drawing on an empty well. And so we have to do this one day at a time. Today, the Lord wants me to look at today. It's an invitation to live one day at a time. Sometimes that's one appointment at a time. Sometimes that's 1 hour at a time. Sometimes that's just one breath at a time. This is what I have to learn, is to be content today, and to stop thinking that my contentment, which will bring my peace, is about my calendar and about my plans. And you know what? God always has my next breath. Sometimes I just say, Jesus, get me through today. I think about what Isaiah wrote in Isaiah 26:3. He said, you will keep in mind that is dependent on you in perfect peace, for it is trusting in you. That's where my perfect peace is trusting in God, not in my plans, not in my calendars, but in God, that perfect peace. So contentment, what does contentment really look like? Well, it doesn't look like you stop praying for healing. It doesn't mean that you stop crying. It doesn't mean that you say, okay, I get it. Contentment means you saying, okay, I don't understand this. I don't know what's going to happen. I wouldn't have chosen this. But I know the God who holds me in his hands. That's where contentment lies. I learn contentment not by denying my feelings or denying that this just is awful. Everything about what's happening right now is awful. I don't deny the uncertainty. But what I do is place my gaze on the certainty of who God is. Again, it goes back, brothers and sisters, into knowing who God is, knowing his character. As we traverse these situations, these circumstances like cancer or job issues or home issues or relationship issues, as we traverse these circumstances that are less than ideal, what we learn to do and what we need to learn to do is lean into the character of the one who doesn't change. And you can't lean into a character that you don't know. And so I have to know God. I have to spend time learning about him. I have to trust in the character, in the one who does not change. It's believing that when life feels uncertain, that God is not uncertain, that his love is consistent, his promises are constant, his presence is constant. These things never change. And because he doesn't change, my hope doesn't have to change either. My hope can lean there, which is what we talked about last week. And hope leads into contentment if I can get that. So maybe today you're waiting. Maybe you're waiting on a biopsy result. Maybe you're waiting on a surgeon. Maybe you're waiting to hear from your doctor. Maybe you're waiting to hear about your next scan. Maybe you're waiting for answers that haven't come yet. So can I encourage you with this? While you're waiting, look to your Father. He isn't waiting without purpose. He isn't allowing without purpose. He doesn't do anything accidentally. God is certain, God is constant, and that is where my contentment must lie, is with him. I don't have to know what tomorrow holds to know God's faithfulness today. He is faithful to me today, and sometimes I have to look to yesterday to remember that He will be faithful with my tomorrow. Let me pray with you. Father, thank you so much that you are constant, that you never change. Thank you that your love for me and for my fellow brothers and sisters never alters. It never fluctuates. Give us the ability, Father, to look to you and not our circumstances and be content knowing that you have our tomorrows just like you have our todays. In Jesus' name, amen. So remember, this is one day at a time, one moment at a time. If you know anyone who is struggling with a cancer diagnosis or is just struggling, period, would you share this podcast episode with them or point them to this YouTube channel so that they can listen to some of the other episodes as well? The whole point of this podcast is to help us navigate such a scary and uncertain time together. So I pray for you as you do these things. God bless you. I pray that your life, just as my life, can be impacted truthfully and totally by the constancy of our Father. See you next time.